This was the most interesting week for me in terms of cycle reviews, to be honest with you. I had a very, very, very large shortage of people actually submitting their cycles, which is weird. Usually people just spam me with them. At the same time, I had my first female response. Finally! And because you guys were lacking so much on volume, I had to dig through the depths of depravity and go into f***ing TikTok to pull it out of. So get ready for this one and buckle down. And that means it's time to enter the Alpha Zone. All right, our first review is going to be SPSJR89. 14 weeks, 750 test, 200 trend. That's not a terrible cycle. It's short though. You probably need to extend that longer if you're actually bulking on it, if that's what you're trying to do. I don't think trend's a great compound to be using alone with test in a bulk. You could definitely add a DHT or some other compound that's not as toxic and use that for your bulk. But if you're a big trend guy, I understand. I do think there's room for improvement there. You could extend that out longer. 14 weeks is generally pretty short. You think that's only a couple months. By the time that all saturates, gets in, and then you're fucking hitting your stride, you're already coming back down and lowering your calories. Not really worth it in my opinion. I'll probably give you a 6 on that one. Slow Lame Dog, you sent one in last week, but because we had so few, I'm gonna let this one slide.
Lucky.
300 test C weekly, 300 Primo weekly, 25 Anavar daily, 3 IUs HGH daily. Why can't more people write them like that? Say he clearly put what's weekly and what's daily instead of mixing them all together, then making me fucking guess and pull numbers out of my ass and start using commie units to fucking figure it all out. Thank you, lame dog. Even though dogs should not be doing fucking steroids, by the way. Just throwing that out there. I like that cycle. That's like the champagne stack, essentially, if we're being honest. GH is a little low. You probably go 4 to 6 units, honestly. Because 2's about replacement dose, you're just barely above it. I guess if it's cost prohibitive, that makes sense, but I will give that one a 9 out of 10. I Sphinx Daddy. Daddy. 350 test, 300 Primo, 300 Mast, 5 milligrams of Retta, 60 micrograms of Clen, 4 IUs of GH. That better be a good fucking cycle, because it's the one that I made for you. Yeah, no, he's one of my clients. So, yeah. I like the structure there. Obviously, he wanted to do a 1 to 2 with his test and his DHTs to stay drier because he sometimes has issues with estrogen. So that took care of that. We don't need an AI, which is great. The Clen is right in the middle of the range. He's been running it for a little bit, so he scaled up from 40 to 60 at this point. 4 IUs of GH, that's fine. 5 milligrams of Retta, that's right in the middle of the dosage range. You just kind of find what dose of Retta seems to suppress your appetite and, you know, turn off the food noise, and then you're golden. You don't need any more than that. You don't need to go any less. You don't need to microdose it. You just find that dose and you fucking stick to it. That's the easy way to use Retta. I do know he's going to use Winstrol at the end of this because we're going to dry out and look really good. Kind of like treating it like a prep, but not quite that extreme. He's trying to look good for a festival, so we're really trying to lean out, get that grainy look. That's why we're doing a little bit less on the testosterone, a little more on the DHTs right now to turn that up. So logically makes sense because yours truly made it.
Thank you, Daddy.
So we're going to get that a 10 out of 10. Johnny Romaine, you submit one every damn week, bro. I don't know if it's the same one though, because I don't memorize every single one, but I'm pretty sure this one's different because I think he had 700 something test last time. So it's slightly different, but 800 test, 400 trend, 400 mast, 50 anadrol. I'm good with that. You're about 1 to 1 test and other anabolics. You're hitting each tree with trend and mast, and anadrol is a great builder. I mean, if this is a bulking cycle, this makes sense. You don't want anadrol in when you're on a cut, obviously. Trend's not always necessary. 400's a little bit on the high side, but I'm not gonna like lose my mind over 400. You know, 150 to 300 is good for most people. Some people can run a little bit less than that, but I think that's a good place to be at with all your compounds. And I'm pretty sure he's a bigger guy from what I remember anyway. So 1.6 grams of gear plus orals, you know, you're about 2 grams total. That's about normal. I'd say most bigger guys, you know, sitting between 2 to 3 grams. That's where the pros sit anyway. So it's not unheard of. I think he's like 240-ish or something like that. So I'll give you a 9 out of 10. Max Aesthetic 0. For my next blast, I'm planning 400 test, 600 EQ, and 300 mast. Now, you're probably gonna have some estrogen issues on the low end with that cycle. If we're being honest, I don't know if you're like super fat and have tons of E2 issues. In that case, it would make sense to run it that much higher. But we're talking almost a gram of DHTs and EQ versus only 400 test. And we know EQ and DHTs sometimes synergize to absolutely nuke estrogen. gym. It depends on his response. Everybody's a little different. Some people, I've seen Marcus Hunter, he was talking about how EQ and Mass nuke his E2. And I was saying, for me, it's Primo and Mass do it, but Primo doesn't touch his E2. I've had undetectable E2 on Mass, or Primo and EQ before. His gets down to like the danger zone too, where he's like near like 15 or below. So you do want to watch that closely. I think you probably need more tests. I would probably flip your test and your EQ dose around. So you're like a 600 and 700 between those, you know, your test and your other compounds. I think that makes more sense if you want that total androgen load there. But obviously this is individual dependent. It's kind of hard to tell without having them in for a consultation. And if you would like to book a consultation, love to see you there. I love interacting with you guys. And honestly, some of my best clients have come from these videos, if I'm being honest with you. And if you can't afford like normal coaching package and you already know ahead of time, like it's gonna be too expensive for you, then go ahead, click the first link down below. The Skool in there has all of my coaching resources. I'm in there doing live calls every single week. There are other professional coaches in there too. And we help you out for a free trial to start with and then $15 a month. You really can't beat it. And as a little bonus, what I'm gonna start doing, if it's not obvious, like this shirt's not obvious, if you can guess the band on my shirt, I give out a free month of coaching now. Just add a little bit of metal things into our content here. Now that I am a free elf, Dobby got his sock, I am out of healthcare now. I can do what the fuck I want. If I want to give out a free month of coaching, I have time to do it now. So if you can guess the band on my shirt, you get one free month of coaching. Go ahead and DM me. What's your point of view on PEDs and their psychological effects? No one talks about this. Well, Leslie, people do talk about it. So it's not completely unheard of, maybe not on her timeline, but it is a good point to bring up because it's not talked about a lot. Like I feel like you get the extremes. Like you have people talk about, oh, that trend made me go bang fat chicks and kill people on the fucking subway, which is the very small minority of people that are probably already unstable and probably already porking fat chicks in the first place. So I don't necessarily agree that it's just trend that does this to people, because I've had DECA make me feel miserable before, and people say DECA makes them, you know, just the progestogenic parts of the 19ors make people into things they're typically not into. Let's put it that way.
Mikey fat chicks on DECA, bro.
In terms of, you know, people feeling like they're psychologically out of it, I know Mike Israetel plays this up a ton, but a lot of what he experiences is because he's on a contest prep and he eats like shit. Mike's diet is terrible. It was much better this last prep, but before that he was like wrapping protein bars in freaking hot dog buns and eating them and shit. Like it was the stupidest diet ever. And I love Mike.
All right, so you need a spot? Great.
No!
Let me get off.
No!
Let's go, bro.
It smells!
You got this.
No, it smells!
You got this, Jesse. Yeah.
It's wet!
I think his training advice is great and everything, but he does some of the stupidest shit on prep, and Jared will tell you that. He's his coach, and he's like, dude, he hasn't listened to me at the time. So in terms of that, like he plays it up too much, and then some people downplay it too much, but it's somewhere in the middle, if we're being honest. There, you know, maybe some neurodegeneration over time with certain compounds, and you know, just the big, large dose of dopamine you get from using gear, yeah, probably over time there is some long-term effect, I imagine. But at the same time, if you look at guys, you know, like Arnold and Sylvester Stallone and all them, they're not like demented or anything. So we don't really have long-term data, and that's the thing, is since steroids are technically illegal in the countries that'll do the research on them, it's really hard to get anything done. But we do at least have Adam Bradshaw and Vigorous Steve pairing up with some people, and they're doing some research on like UGLs and pharma grade gear and seeing if it's legit, seeing if it's dosed right. So maybe this will open up a little bit of a gap and we can start getting more research done on PEDs and see what the real effects are, because people don't really know on a small micro level what they're doing as much as we do just kind of seeing people day to day. I mean, we do know the effects of certain compounds do have mental effects, typically just Tren and Halo, if we're being honest, and DECA can also because of the progestogenic effects. But I've never heard of anybody having like extreme mental effects on just test and DHT derivatives or EQ even. Typically if they do, it's because their estrogen's way up or down, and usually the estrogen's what people don't dial in. They just preset their AI and let it ride, or they don't even check it in the first place. And then I get a consultation like, oh, I feel miserable, I can't do anything. What's your E2, bro? It's like, I don't know, like 85. Like, fucking get it down. That's why you feel like a bitch, dude. Like, don't be fucking stupid. Let's be honest. Come on. Like, let's get with the program. Do the basic shit. Or if you're not sure, you don't want to fuck yourself up and try to dig yourself out of the hole in the back end. So from TikTok, 800 sus, 400 MPP, 650 primo, 5 IU, HGH daily. I don't know, he's kind of like, not to be an asshole here, but he kind of looks like the dad that kind of goes to the gym, like dad bod. You can tell they work out a little bit, but they don't look like they're on that much gear.
You're an asshole.
Or any gear at all. I think that's kind of extreme for you, bro. Like 800 sussed. I'm not a big fan of blends in the first place. You already know that. But we're talking 2 grams of gear for that physique. I'm like, Probably don't need it that high if we're being honest. But I do like the idea of using sussed, primo, MPP, and using the MPP lower than the other 2. Structurally sound, 5 values of GH is fine. I'm gonna give it like a 6. It's just a little too high for what we need here. I think you could accomplish the same thing by lowering your test dose, potentially lowering the primo a bit, maybe adding 1 other compound to fill that gap if you feel like you need that much. But that's an expensive ass cycle too with 650 primo, if we're being honest. I ran a gram of primo one time and it burns a hole in your pocket, and it burns a hole in everything you inject too if you're injecting that much oil. I will tell you that. Jesus. And the last one for this week, Folly 87. I don't know what the hell that is, but he's a YouTube commenter, so welcome back to the channel, bud. 500 sussed every week, 700 test prop every. Wow, that's a lot of test. That's a lot of injecting, bro. That's gotta hurt. 700. It's 100 milligrams a day of test prop because you got to shoot that shit every day. I mean, he looks kind of like a power lifter build. 210 Anavar every week. Can we stop doing this? Why do we dose our Anavar at some weird ass number every week? Once again, I don't know what is this fucking Anavar people are getting lately. All right, that's 30 milligrams. That's not horrible. 30 milligrams a day. It's not like the 21.222 repeating or whatever I've been getting. So 30 milligrams of Anavar per day, 40 of Parabolin every week. 10 IUs of GH, 400 mast every week. So we're looking at 1200 tests, but you have a blend plus a ton of test prop. Bro, you don't need to run that much test prop unless you're on a contest, bro. That doesn't make much sense. Maybe test no ester if you're using it before a workout, if you're like strongman or something. I get that. I don't know. Your orals are only 30, which is fine. I'm surprised he's not using Anadrol, to be honest. 400 parabolins, that's trend hex. So 2,500 total plus mass. So almost 3 grams of gear. That's a really hefty cycle. It really depends on his goals, obviously. I prefer trend ace or E, like keep it, you know, a little less aggressive on the trend too. But yeah, that's a lot of injecting to do, if we're being honest too, with all that test prop. Not a huge fan of that much test prop. If you're gonna run a gram of test, I would run it on something stable, not just like the random fucking dart throwing of Sustanon and then a ton of test prop every day. It's a big cycle, man. It's a big cycle. His body fat looks a little higher on the picture. But once again, I don't know if he's strongman, if he is powerlifting or bodybuilding. His bodybuilding, he's entirely too like heavy and needs to cut down and needs to slash his doses down. If he's doing this for purely like strength output, that's actually really not bad if he's like strongman or powerlifting. But you'd probably be better off with like a test no ester or something before your workout instead of just railing test prop all the time. As I said, this is very context dependent. Very, very context dependent. If this is a bodybuilder, I'm giving it like a 5. If you're a strongman or powerlifter, it's probably like a 7 or an 8 out of 10. That about does the YouTube segment for this week with the cycle reviews. So what I've also started doing on my Instagram is we're going to do a weekly Instagram cycle review segment where we do shorts on the fly. Not much editing, not fancy, not with this new ballin' ass setup we got here, 4K, 60 frames, good lighting, you know, we figured some shit out. That's why I'm a little late on recording this one. I ordered the camera and I ordered everything all at once. Paid for Prime shipping, and then the camera and the lens came in 6 days instead of 2, of course. Thank you, Amazon, for doing fucking nothing as always. And then once I got it, it took me like a full day to get all the settings right because there's a billion freaking settings on these high-end cameras, and I am not a photographer by any stretch. What actually happened, to fill you guys in, I had the settings right and everything, but on OBS and my recording softwares, Elgato and all that, I had to go in there and change the advanced like bitrate codecs and all these advanced settings, but it wasn't telling me, it was just lagging. So like it would look good here, it would look good when I was doing stuff, but then I would hit record and it would look good for the first couple seconds, then start getting real choppy on me. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, how do I fix this? I couldn't record a YouTube video until I fixed it because I didn't want it to look like slop. Sorry about being a little late getting this one out, but I do have it all set up now. It looks good, thankfully, so expect more high quality stuff coming out soon.